Imagine the first breath of morning in a medieval town. The streets are damp with dew, cobblestones slick from the night's mist. Horses clatter past, their hooves ringing against stone. A faint smell of smoke hangs in the air, for even at dawn. The hearths of bakers and smiths are already lit, and tucked among the winding lanes of timber-framed houses, a small workshop comes alive. Your workshop. You are not a knight, nor a noble, nor even a wealthy merchant. You are something quieter, humbler, but no less necessary. You are a candle maker. Before the church bells toll, you have already risen. Your hands are rough with wax, your nails edged with soot, your clothes marked by years of labor. The world beyond your door barely notices you, yet without your work, their nights would drown in darkness. Candles are the lifeblood of this age. They illuminate chapels, guide monks through prayer, mark the passing of hours in cloisters, and give merchants time to count their coins after sundown. Even the humblest peasant wedding or vigil by the dead requires your craft. But becoming a candle maker was not a choice of romance or dream. It was a trade pressed upon you by necessity, by guild, by inheritance. Perhaps your father dipped candles before you, and his father before him, passing down the knowledge of wax and wick like a secret flame. Or perhaps you entered as an apprentice, bound to a master for years of back-breaking work until your hands learned the motions by muscle and not by mind. In your world, candles are more than light. They are symbols. A single taper offered at the altar might represent the soul of a sinner yearning for forgiveness. A thick pillar, burning before a saint's shrine, could mean the desperate plea of a sick child's mother. Monarchs donate vast clusters of candles to cathedrals, not merely for illumination, but as demonstrations of wealth and piety. To light a candle in the medieval age is not simply to chase away the dark, it is to summon something sacred. Yet the making of these small miracles is anything but divine. Your morning begins with the rancid stench of tallow. Most of the candles you produce for ordinary folk are not elegant beeswax pillars, golden and sweet-smelling, reserved for the nobility and the church. No, yours are tallow candles made from the rendered fat of animals. It is a vile, greasy substance that clings to your clothes, your skin, even your hair. The neighbors wrinkle their noses when you pass. Children sometimes call you stinker, though they still line up at your shop when their mothers send them for light. The process is tedious, repetitive, and filthy. Cauldrons of tallow bubble above the fire. Wooden rods strung with wicks are dipped again and again into the liquid fat, cooled, then dipped once more. Each cycle thickens the candle's body, layer upon layer, until at last it resembles a usable taper. Your hands move mechanically, almost rhythmically. Dip, lift, cool, dip again. Hours pass like this, the only sound the crackle of firewood, the occasional hiss when fat drips onto flame, the steady drip of cooling tallow. And yet, amidst the monotony, there is artistry. A candle that burns too quickly wastes precious fat. One that smokes and sputters fills a home with choking haze. You must learn balance, the right wick, the proper length, the perfect thickness. Too thin, and it collapses. Too thick, and it gutters. Every candle you shape carries your reputation, for word travels fast in the town market. Still, your craft is bound by social rank. The nobility scorn your tallow wares. They demand beeswax, a luxury imported at great cost, drawn from carefully kept hives. Beeswax burns with a steady, golden flame, almost smokeless, almost eternal in its purity. It smells faintly of honey, a sweetness that lingers in cathedrals and palaces. But beeswax is dear, and most of it is claimed by the church. You handle it rarely, with reverence, for each pound of wax is worth more than weeks of your labor. As the town awakens, the bells of the parish ring. Their echoes stir the market square. Merchants unfurl stalls of cloth and spices. Butchers hang their meats, fishwives cry their wares, and you, too, will soon set out your candles, bundles tied with rough twine, ready for the day's trade. You do not expect wealth, but you hope for enough to pay your guild dues, to buy bread, perhaps even to save a little coin for the winter when fat is scarce and bees sleep. In the streets you are neither honored nor despised, but tolerated. People need your light, but they do not linger in your company. You smell of smoke and suet. Your home reeks of boiling fat. Even your clothes are marked with wax stains that never wash away. And yet, when night falls and their cottages would be blind and black without you, they remember. Your candles burn on their tables, at their vigils, in their prayers. There are rumors, of course. The superstitious whisper that candle makers, so close to fire and wax, meddle with charms. Some say you can curse a man by twisting his name into a wick. Others claim a candle lit with a secret prayer can bind lovers together or protect a child from the plague. You do not deny these stories outright. After all, mystery sells as well as necessity. Still, the truth is simpler and harsher. You are not a magician, but a laborer. Your life is dictated by seasons, by the endless turning of trade, by the demands of guild and parish. Day by day you dip, you mold, you shape. Your reward is not honor or admiration, but survival. And yet, in the quiet hours of dawn, as the first candle you've made that morning flickers in your hand, you feel a strange pride. The flame dances, small yet defiant, against the vastness of the dark. Perhaps your work is humble, perhaps it stinks, perhaps it is thankless, but it is light. And in this world where shadows come early and linger long, what greater gift can there be than to hold the power to drive them back? So begins your life as a medieval candle maker. Not glorious, not celebrated, but necessary. The days ahead will be filled with fire and fat, with prayers and payments, with guild masters and churchmen. The path will wind through markets, monasteries, festivals, and funerals. And in every chapter, the candle, your candle, will stand at the center, burning steadily while the world stumbles through the dark. Before you became a candle maker in your own right, before the workshop and the endless cauldrons of bubbling tallow, you were an apprentice. Your story, like so many in the medieval world, began with a contract ink on parchment, sealed with wax. Perhaps you were no older than 12, your father placing his mark beside the master's, binding you to years of labor in exchange for learning a trade. Childhood ended the moment you stepped across the threshold of the workshop. The first lesson you learned was the smell. It was not the sweet fragrance of beeswax, but the foul reek of animal fat. Tallow must be boiled, rendered, strained, and purified, though no amount of boiling can truly erase its stench. It seeped into your hair, your skin, even your dreams. Many apprentices gagged, sickened by the odor that clung to their clothes. You forced yourself to endure, because to falter was to be beaten, mocked, or dismissed back to your family in disgrace. The workshop was a place of heat and rhythm. At its heart, a great hearth roared, always alive with fire. Copper cauldrons hung over the flames, their contents shimmering like molten cream. Long rods were stacked nearby, each strung with wicks. The air was thick with smoke, steam, and the faint sweetness of charred wood. Here you learned the dance of dipping, lowering the wicks into the cauldron, lifting them out, letting the fat cool, dipping again, over and over until a candle slowly took shape. It was monotonous, yet strangely hypnotic. Each dip was a step in a silent chant. The wax clung to the wick, hardened, and then welcomed more, like stone layers forming in a cliff. An apprentice's life was repetition, hours spent perfecting what seemed like drudgery. But you began to notice details, the way a wick twisted wrong could cause a candle to sputter, the way the temperature of the fat decided if the surface hardened, smooth, or rough. You burned your fingers often. Hot wax splattered, blisters rose, and scars stayed, but the master did not care for your pain. He cared only for your obedience. Apprentices were not taught with kindness, but with discipline. A sharp tongue, a heavy hand, and the ever-present threat of failure shaped you more than any book of instruction. And yet, the candlemaker's craft was more than dipping. You swept the floors, chopped the wood, carried buckets of water, scraped fat from hides, and strained it through cloth. You hauled bundles of rushes for rushlights, cheap substitutes for candles made by coating plant stalks with grease. You polished finished candles, tied them in bundles, and carried them to the market. At night, your arms ached, your back throbbed, and your body smelled of fire and suet. Still, there were moments of wonder. When your master worked with beeswax, you watched in awe. It came to the shop in golden cakes, rich and clean. Unlike the greasy pall of tallow, beeswax smelled of summer meadows, of hives humming in orchards. It was pliable, smooth, almost luxurious to touch. From it came candles that burned like small suns, clear, steady, and pure. These were the candles destined for cathedrals, for noble halls, for royal ceremonies. To touch beeswax was to glimpse the wealth of kings and the favor of God. The guild loomed over your apprenticeship as well. In most towns, candlemakers were bound to guilds, associations of craftsmen who protected their trade. The guild controlled prices, decided who could sell in the market, and guarded the secrets of the craft. As an apprentice, you were the lowest rung in this ladder, your name scarcely worth remembering. You paid your dues not with coin, but with sweat. Someday, perhaps, you would rise to journeyman, and with luck, to master, but only if the guild allowed it. Your days blurred into months, months into years. Outside, the town shifted with the seasons. Winter brought long nights and desperate need for candles, though fat was scarce. Summer eased the darkness, but beeswax flowed more readily from hives. You began to see the world through the rhythm of light and shadow, through the demands of day and night. And then came the moment of pride. Your first candle sold under your own name. It was not beeswax, nor destined for a cathedral. It was a simple tallow taper, rough and ordinary, sold to a housewife in the market. She paid a few coins, tucked the bundle under her arm, and walked away without a thought. Yet you watched her go, your heart swelling, for it was your work that would burn in her cottage that night. Apprenticeship was not only labor, it was a reshaping of self. You learned patience, for candles could not be rushed. You learned humility, for no one praised the maker of light, they praised only the flame itself. You learned endurance, for the work was endless and mistakes were costly. And slowly, without realizing it, you became what your master had been, a servant of fire, a shaper of wax, a quiet keeper of light. By the time your apprenticeship ended, you were no longer the wide-eyed child who first entered the shop. You were hardened, weathered, and scarred, but also skilled. You had mastered the rhythm of dipping, the balance of wick and wax, the temper of the flame. You had carried the guild's burdens, endured the stink of tallow, and earned your place among the makers of light. And so you stepped out of apprenticeship into a new life, no longer a boy, but a journeyman candlemaker. The road ahead stretched uncertain and narrow, but it was yours. With rod and wick, with fat and fire, with patience and pride, you would build a life by the flicker of flame. When your apprenticeship ended, the ink on your release papers barely dry, you felt a new kind of freedom. You were no longer bound by contract to sweep another man's floor or fetch his water. You were a journeyman now, a candlemaker in your own right, though not yet a master. The guild permitted you to work for wages, to travel from town to town, carrying your skill like a badge and your tools like a burden. Journeymen were wanderers. Some stayed close, hiring themselves out to larger workshops in nearby towns. Others drifted far, following trade routes, offering their craft where demand was greatest. You joined their ranks, your bundle of rods and wicks slung over your shoulder, your hands stained with wax that would never wash away. The road was hard. You slept in barns, at inns if coin allowed, or sometimes beneath the open sky. Mud clung to your boots, rain soaked your cloak, and winter's bite gnawed at your bones. Yet wherever you went, your trade gave you purpose. A candlemaker was not celebrated, but he was needed, and in a world where nights stretched long and dark, need was a powerful currency. Your first stop was a market town where the guild had strong roots. The workshops there were larger, their masters proud and strict. You presented yourself humbly, showing your release papers, offering your skill. They tested you, dipping tallow, shaping beeswax, cutting wicks to proper length. Your hands remembered the motions without hesitation, and soon you were accepted, paid little, but enough to eat, enough to learn the ways of a bigger shop. Life as a journeyman was a repetition of what you already knew, but with new challenges. Larger shops meant larger cauldrons, bigger orders, stricter oversight. You dipped candles not by dozens, but by hundreds, rows of tapers hanging like pale soldiers drying on racks. You worked from dawn until night, the heat of the hearth pressing against your skin, the stink of fat curling into your nostrils. But you endured, for each hour of labor added weight to your name in the guild's ledger. It was during these years that you began to see how varied your trade could be. In one town, rushlights were in greater demand than candles, cheap and crude, for the poor could afford nothing else. In another, the church consumed endless beeswax tapers, their altars glittering with hundreds of flames. Sometimes you worked on votive candles, small and stubby, meant to burn before saint statues. Other times you helped craft great processional candles, taller than a man, thick as a pillar, destined to be carried in holy parades. You also discovered the subtle rivalries between craftsmen. Tallow chandlers and wax chandlers often eyed each other with suspicion. The tallow men, serving the common folk, were considered rough, dirty, and foul-smelling. The wax chandlers, with their golden stock for the nobility and clergy, walked with noses high, their hands cleaner, their shops finer. Yet both were needed, and both claimed the dignity of keeping darkness at bay. Your time as a journeyman was not only about work, it was about survival. You haggled with innkeepers, bargained with butchers for scraps of fat, pleaded with guild officers for fair wages. You carried your bundle of candles to markets, calling out prices, trying to lure buyers while competing against other makers. Some days, coins clinked into your purse. Other days, you returned with unsold bundles, your stomach empty. And then there were the fair's great gatherings where merchants from across the land set up stalls. Cloth from Flanders, spices from the east, wine from distant vineyards, and among them, candles. Fairs were opportunities, but also risks. The guild set strict rules. No undercutting prices, no selling without permission, no stealing another's customers. Fines were harsh, punishments harsher. Yet beneath the guild's gaze, trade bustled, and you learned to navigate the swirl of voices, smells, and sights, offering your humble wares amid the chaos of commerce. But perhaps the greatest lesson of your journeyman years was the way people looked at light. In cottages, your candles were tools burned without ceremony, used to cook, sew, or read a ledger. In taverns, they lit dice games and arguments, their smoke mingling with ale and sweat. In monasteries, they marked the hours of prayer, each flame a silent companion to a monk's chant. And in cathedrals, they became more than light. They became symbols of devotion, power, and wealth. You remember standing once in a great cathedral, your eyes lifting to the altar where hundreds of beeswax tapers blazed. The golden flames reflected in the stained glass, turning the entire space into a world of color and fire. It was breathtaking, humbling, and you thought of your own calloused hands, of the stink of tallow, of the endless dipping. To the worshippers, it was a miracle of God. To you, it was the labor of men. Yet for all your travels, for all your labor, the journeyman's path was not endless. You could not remain a wanderer forever. The guild demanded that, in time, you present yourself as a candidate for mastery. To become a master was to claim your own shop, to employ your own apprentices, to set your own mark upon the town. But it was no simple task. You needed money for the entry fee, respect from fellow craftsmen, and above all, proof of your skill. The proof was called the masterpiece. Every journeyman seeking mastery had to craft a candle, or often a set of candles that demonstrated perfection. The wick must be flawless, the wax smooth, the burn steady and clean. It was a trial of patience and pride, and many failed. Some never rose beyond journeymen, doomed to wander until age bent their backs and stilled their hands. You carried this knowledge like a weight as you moved from town to town. Each candle you made, each coin you earned, each lesson you learned was a step toward that test. Someday, you told yourself, you would not merely sell light at another man's stall, you would light your own doorway with your own work, and the town would know you as master. But the road to mastery was long. For now, you remained a journeyman, your life measured not in years, but in flames candle you dipped a heartbeat in wax, each wick a thread of time burning slowly toward a future you could only imagine. Years of labor on the road had hardened your hands, your back, and your patience. You had wandered markets, labored in other men's shops, and dipped more candles than you could ever count. Yet all of that was only preparation for this moment, the day you stood before the guild, ready to attempt the trial of mastery. The guild hall loomed over the square, a timber-framed building with carved beams darkened by age and smoke. Inside, beneath a roof of oak rafters, the masters gathered. Men of wax and tallow, their faces lined by firelight, their hands roughened by years of labor, but their voices carrying authority like lords. The guild was no place for humility. It was a fortress of rules, secrets, and pride, and you were about to place yourself at its mercy. Becoming a master was no simple matter. First came the fees coins you had saved for years, scrimping from wages, hoarding pennies from the sale of candles in distant markets. Then came the oaths swearing loyalty to the guild, to uphold its prices, to protect its secrets, to obey its officers. But the true trial was the masterpiece, a candle, or more often a set of candles, so perfect that no flaw could be found. You remember the weight of that challenge as clearly as the smell of tallow. To make a candle fit for mastery was to walk a narrow path. The wick must be cut and twisted with precision, neither too thick nor too thin. The wax, whether tallow or beeswax, depending on your means, must be purified, free of grit, smooth as ivory. The shape must be straight, even, and balanced, the surface unblemished, the base strong. And above all, the burn must be clean, no guttering, no sputtering, no wasteful smoke. The masters gave you a place to work, but no help. You stood alone before the hearth, cauldron bubbling, rods laid out, wicks ready. The hall was silent but for the hiss of fire. Every dip of wick into wax felt like a heartbeat, slow and heavy. You dipped, lifted, cooled, dipped again. Hours passed. Your hands shook with fatigue, but you dared not falter. A single flaw could ruin all. Other journeymen watched, waiting their turn, some whispering prayers, others biting their lips in fear. Some had attempted this trial before and failed. You knew their stories, the man whose candle burned too quickly, the one whose wick curled and died, the one whose wax cracked as it cooled. They had returned to journeyman's life, forever barred from mastery, their dreams extinguished like snuffed flames. At last your candles were finished. They stood in a neat row, pale and even, gleaming faintly in the firelight. Your heart pounded as the masters leaned forward, their eyes sharp. One lifted a candle, turning it slowly in his hands, searching for cracks, for lumps, for flaws. Another trimmed the wick and lit it. The flame rose, steady and bright, the hall filled with the faint smell of wax. Time itself seemed to hold its breath. Minutes passed. The candle burned clean, without smoke, without sputter. The masters exchanged glances. You tried not to tremble, though sweat beaded on your brow. Finally, the eldest among them, a man whose beard was as gray as ash, set the candle down and spoke. It is worthy. The word struck you like a bell. Worthy. You had done it. The fear, the labor, the years of wandering, all had led to this single moment. The guild accepted you as one of their own, not as a servant, not as a wanderer, but as a master. That night you walked through the streets of the town with a new pride. The same cobblestones lay beneath your feet, the same taverns spilled laughter into the night, the same shadows crept from the alleys. But you were different. You were no longer merely a man who made candles, you were a master candle maker, with the right to open your own shop, to hire apprentices, to stamp your mark upon your wares. The next weeks were filled with preparations. You rented a small workshop, timber walls, a low roof, a hearth already blackened with soot. You bought cauldrons, rods, and bundles of wick. You hung a simple sign outside, marked with a carved candle, the symbol of your craft. And you lit your doorway with your own work, a beeswax taper burning golden against the dark. A silent announcement to the town. Here was a man of light. Customers came slowly at first. A housewife seeking a bundle of cheap tallow tapers. A parish priest needing candles for Sunday Mass. A merchant preparing for a wedding feast. Each sale was small, but each coin added weight to your purse. Each smile of satisfaction added strength to your name. The guild kept its watchful eye upon you. You paid your dues faithfully, attended meetings, abided by rules. To undercut prices, to cheat weights, to sell outside the guild's control, these were crimes that could strip you of your mastery. The guild was not merely an association. It was a brotherhood, a shield, and a leash. But even within its strict bounds, you found a strange joy. For the first time, the workshop was yours. The cauldron's fire was your fire, the smell of wax your smell, the candles lined in neat rows your creation. Apprentices looked at you with the same mixture of fear and respect you once felt for your master. And as you guided their clumsy hands, you saw yourself reflected in their struggle, and you knew the cycle would continue. Life as a master was not easy. The town's needs shifted with the seasons, the church's demands swallowed most of the best beeswax, and coin was always scarce. Yet you held your place. You were no noble, no knight, no priest. But when night fell and the town's windows glowed with candlelight, when cathedrals blazed with golden flame, when merchants tallied their coins by flicker of taper, you knew that your work, your humble, smelly, tireless work, lit the world. And so, by fire and fat, by patience and pride, you had earned your place in history. A master candlemaker, keeper of light in a world of shadows. The first morning you awoke as a master candlemaker, the town sounded no different. The cock crowed in the distance, the bells of the parish tolled for matins, merchants rolled open shutters with a groan of wood against wood. Yet for you, the world had changed. You rose not as a servant of another man's workshop, but as the keeper of your own fire. Your day began with the hearth, always the hearth. Without fire, there could be no wax, no dipping, no light. You split kindling, stacked logs, and coaxed flame from embers. Soon the cauldron hung above, water steaming within it, ready to receive fat or beeswax. The smoke curled upward, filling your rafters with the scent of labor. Your apprentices stirred sluggishly, rubbing sleep from their eyes, yawning as they shuffled into the workshop. They were boys no older than you had been when first bound to a master, their faces still soft, their hands unmarked by scars. They swept, fetched water, stirred cauldrons, and endured your sharp commands. You remembered their place all too well. The master's voice had once rung in your ears like a whip. Now it was your turn to wield it. The work began in earnest as the town shook itself awake. Rods were laid out, wicks cut and tied, cauldrons filled with the day's stock. Tallow was the constant, heaps of it stacked in buckets, pale and greasy, its stench clinging to everything. Beeswax, rare and precious, was kept separate, wrapped in linen to protect its sweetness. You dipped and dipped, your apprentices beside you, their motions clumsy but eager. Each wick sank into hot fat, emerged dripping, cooled, then dipped again. The rhythm filled the workshop, a steady chant of labor. Candles grew slowly, layer by layer, until they hung thick and pale from their rods. Customers arrived by mid-morning. The first were always housewives, their aprons stained with flour or grease, their coins clutched tight. They bought bundles of tallow tapers, cheap and plain, enough to last a week of cooking, sewing, and mending after sundown. Some complained about prices, others about the smell, but all returned, for where else could they find light? Later came merchants, their purses heavier, their demands greater. They ordered candles for feasts, for counting rooms, for storerooms filled with goods. They bargained fiercely, but they bought in bulk, and their silver filled your coffer. Then the clergy. Priests and monks arrived with solemn faces, their orders large and exacting. They wanted beeswax, always beeswax, for the altar of God must not smoke with the stench of tallow. They demanded purity, perfection, candles without blemish, candles that burned as steady as faith itself. And though they paid well, their orders drained your stock, leaving little beeswax for anyone else. In the afternoons, when the market was loudest, you sometimes carried your candles into the square. You set them in neat bundles on a wooden table, their pale shapes catching the sun. The cries of vendors filled the air, bakers hawking bread, butchers shouting prices, fishwives shrieking their catch. You added your voice to theirs, offering light in a world of darkness. Some days you sold well, others you carried your bundles home, unsold, your pride dimmed like a snuffed wick. The guild was never far from your thoughts. Its officers passed through the market, eyes sharp for cheats or thieves. Dues were collected without mercy, and fines struck like sudden storms. Yet the guild also shielded you, protecting your trade from outsiders, ensuring no man could undercut you without consequence. It was both a prison and a shield, a weight and a blessing. Evenings brought the slower work, trimming wicks, bundling candles, tallying sales. Apprentices scrubbed the cauldrons, swept the floor, stacked wood for tomorrow. You sat by the fire, counting coins, your hands still sticky with wax. The day's labor clung to you, the smell of tallow in your hair, the soot on your face. the ache in your shoulders. But as night deepened and the town grew quiet, a strange satisfaction settled upon you. You looked at the rows of finished candles, their pale bodies waiting for flame, and you felt a pride deeper than coin could measure. Tomorrow they would burn in cottages, in taverns, in monasteries, in noble halls. Tomorrow they would light feasts and prayers, arguments and love songs, births and burials. Your life was not glorious, but it was essential. For in the medieval world, darkness was no mere inconvenience. It was a force, vast and absolute. Without light, men stumbled, thieves prowled, spirits whispered, fears multiplied. And you, humble, smelly, uncelebrated, held the power to drive that darkness back, if only for a few hours at a time. Yet the work wore at you. The endless dipping, the endless stink, the endless demands. Your back bent more each year, your hands roughened, your lungs filled with smoke. You watched apprentices grow into journeymen struggle for mastery, and you wondered if they too would one day stand where you stood, proud yet weary, a master in name but a servant to fire. Still, each day you rose. Each day you lit the hearth. Each day you dipped and shaped, sold and tallied. The rhythm of your life was the rhythm of flame, steady and consuming. And as you blew out your last candle each night, leaving only embers in the dark, you whispered a silent prayer that tomorrow the world would still need your light. Candles were never just candles. In medieval towns, they were vessels of light, yes, but also vessels of belief. Step into a great cathedral, the kind that rises above the rooftops with towers of stone and stained glass, and you'll notice the flicker of countless flames. Each one represents a prayer, a soul, a plea whispered into the dark. As a candle maker, your humble wax finds itself in these sacred spaces, lighting the faces of saints carved in stone, and guiding the gaze of the devout toward heaven. The church was the greatest customer you could hope for. Every parish, every chapel, every monastery needed candles hundreds, sometimes thousands at a time. Imagine the monks chanting in low tones as your carefully dipped tapers burned steadily, their light reflecting off chalices of gold and silver. Some of your candles are short-lived, melting away in a single vigil. Others are tall and stout, standing watch through long feasts, holy days, and the endless procession of Mass. And yet, there's something more mysterious about it all. Candles in the medieval world were not only used for practical light, but for spiritual warfare. People believed that the flame had power, that it could keep evil spirits at bay, that it could connect the living to the dead, and that prayers burned brighter when a candle was offered alongside them. Every wick you cut, every taper you dip, is part of this invisible battle between darkness and salvation. In your workshop, villagers sometimes arrive not just with money but with desperation. A grieving widow might hand you a few copper coins, begging you for a candle strong enough to burn through the night of All Souls' Day, when the veil between the living and the dead feels thin. A nervous farmer might request a candle blessed in holy water, hoping it will protect his cattle from a sickness that spreads through the village. And you, the candle maker, while not a priest, are part of these superstitions? The townsfolk see your craft as half artisan, half alchemist, someone whose work shapes the boundary between the mundane and the divine. Of course, the quality of your candles matters deeply here. Beeswax candles are always preferred for holy rites. They burn clean, their smoke rising like pure incense. Unlike the animal tallow candles most commoners use, beeswax carries no foul stench. In fact, it gives off a faintly sweet aroma, the whisper of honey long gone. Churches demand these candles above all others, and supplying them means access to wealth and prestige that no tallow alone could ever provide, but beeswax is rare. Monasteries with beehives keep much of it for themselves. Nobles with estates take their share. The scraps that reach you are worth their weight in silver. Still, you know how to blend. Perhaps you stretch the beeswax by mixing it with a touch of tallow, hoping the priest won't notice. Or maybe you hoard your purest wax for the most important orders, the Easter candle, enormous and towering, lit at the Paschal feast as a symbol of resurrection. That single candle is not just a light. It's a miracle in wax and flame, watched by hundreds of eyes as it banished the shadows of a stone nave. But there's danger, too. The church is a place of fire hazards, and many towns have seen cathedrals go up in flames because of a single careless spark. You know the story St. Mary's in London, the Abbey at Glastonbury, churches across France, and the empire reduced to blackened ruins because wax met wood in the wrong place. Sometimes it is your craft that is blamed. Candles that sputter, drip, or flare too wildly bring suspicion. Was it poor workmanship or something worse? Whispered rumors of sabotage, heresy, or even witchcraft can cling to a candle maker whose product misbehaves at the altar. Superstition follows you home as well. Candle flames are seen as omens. If the flame burns steady, it means peace, good fortune, God's blessing. If it flickers or dies too suddenly, villagers take it as a sign of death or misfortune. Some mothers hold a newborn child before a lit candle, watching closely to see whether the flame steadies or trembles, as if the wick itself could predict the child's fate. And when someone dies, the candle becomes the soul's last companion, carried beside the coffin, placed near the body, burning until the final prayers are spoken. You've seen all this? You've watched the way people's eyes linger on your creations as though they are more than mere light. In the quiet of your workshop, with wax dripping and flames flickering, you sometimes wonder yourself, do these candles carry something of the spirit? Do they truly guide the prayers upward like smoke rising toward heaven? Or is it all belief, a grand illusion built on the simple fact that humans fear the dark? But there's no denying one truth. In an age of shadows, you are a gatekeeper of light. Your work touches the sacred, the fearful, and the hopeful. Every candle that leaves your hand is more than a tool, it is a beacon, a symbol, a fragile bridge between what people can see and what they cannot. And as you dip the wick once more, watching the wax harden, you realize that you are not just a craftsman. You are part of a greater story, one written in fire, faith, and the eternal battle against the dark. By now, your candles are more than simple goods for villagers and clergy. They are sought after, judged, and compared. And in the bustling streets of your medieval town, there is no escaping the power of the guilds. The Guild of Candle Makers, or Chandlers as they were often called, is both a shield and a chain. It offers protection from rivals outside the trade. It ensures that you have the right to sell in the market square, and it grants your craft a measure of respect. But it also binds you with rules, taxes, and endless obligations. You cannot simply melt wax and call yourself a master. To reach that rank, you must serve years as an apprentice, then toil as a journeyman under another's watchful eye, before at last producing your masterpiece, a candle or set of candles so perfect that the guild elders deem you worthy. Think of those early days. You were not allowed to keep profits. You worked in another man's shop, cleaning pots, trimming wicks, gathering tallow, and sometimes scrubbing away hardened wax until your hands blistered. The master might strike you for clumsiness or mock your inexperience. Yet slowly you learn the secrets. The correct angle to dip the wick so it hardens evenly, the precise mixture of tallow to keep it firm and cold, whether the guarded techniques of blending beeswax without losing its natural glow. The guild prizes these secrets. Recipes are not written down but passed from master to apprentice, whispered by the hearth or demonstrated in silence. A slip of the hand, a mismeasured ladle, and your candle burns too fast or drips disastrously. If you reveal too much to an outsider, or worse, attempt to sell candles without the guild's blessing, you face punishment. Fines, banishment, sometimes even imprisonment. The guild is not merely a brotherhood. It is a fortress protecting both quality and profit, and yet rivalries flare constantly. Chandlers in one district accuse those in another of mixing too much animal fat into beeswax orders. Journeymen leave their masters to seek fortune elsewhere, sometimes stealing loyal customers along the way. Petty disputes grow into open feuds. There are stories of chandlers sabotaging each other's stalls at market, slipping soot or dirt into a rival's wares so their candles smoke and sputter before a customer's eyes. A single ruined batch can destroy a reputation built over decades. Then there are the merchants who bypass guild rules entirely. Peddlers from distant villages arrive with cheap candles, selling them for far less than guild-approved prices. To the poor, who can barely afford a stub of tallow, these bargains are tempting. But to you and your brothers in the craft, they are a threat. The guild might respond by confiscating goods, driving out the intruders, even calling upon town officials to enforce the law. Candles, humble as they seem, can spark riots when livelihoods are at stake. Inside the guild hall, the atmosphere is thick with both fraternity and suspicion. Long tables are lit by the very candles you produce, their flames casting shadows on faces lined with wax and soot. Here, disputes are settled, apprentices are sworn in, and laws are read aloud. Some masters grow wealthy, trading directly with monasteries and noble estates. Others scrape by, supplying nothing more than villagers' meager needs. Yet all must bow to the guild's authority. And in this, you find yourself caught between ambition and survival. Perhaps you dream of becoming a master yourself, opening a shop with your name painted proudly above the door. You imagine customers praising your wares, priests seeking your beeswax for their grandest feasts, townsfolk depending on you for their nightly glow. But every step upward is fraught with obstacles, fees, jealous rivals, and the ever-present risk of failure. The guild enforces quality, but it also enforces conformity. Innovation is frowned upon. If you experiment too much, say, by adding herbs to the wax for scent, or by shaping candles in unusual designs, you risk censure. The guild prefers tradition. Customers trust candles that look and burn the way they always have. But within you, perhaps, there's a restless spark. Could there be more to this craft? Could wax hold possibilities beyond the narrow vision of your fellow chandlers? Still, the life of a candle maker is not lived in dreams alone. Each week you pay your dues, each month you attend meetings, and each year you witness the cycle of apprentices arriving, journeymen leaving, and masters growing old by the hearth, their fingers twisted and scarred from decades of hot wax. It is a hard life, yet it binds you to a tradition centuries old. Sometimes, late at night, you wonder if the guild itself is a kind of candle aflame guarded against the winds of change. Without it, your trade might be swallowed by merchants and peddlers, lost in a tide of cheap, poor-quality wares. With it, you are preserved, honored, and chained all at once. And so you work on dipping, pouring, molding. Each candle you make is both yours and not yours shaped by your hand, but governed by rules far older than you. It is a strange existence, half free, half bound, but such is life in the medieval town. For every flicker of ambition, the guild is there to steady the flame, reminding you that even light must follow order. The bell rings in the marketplace, and the square comes alive. Merchants shout their wares, hawkers jostle for space, and the air is thick with the scent of roasted meat, horse dung, and freshly baked bread. In the midst of this chaos, you, the candle maker, set up your stall. A wooden table, a small canopy to shield against rain or sun, and rows of your candles, some humble, some fine arranged for the eyes of passers-by. Markets are the beating heart of medieval towns. For a candle maker, they are both opportunity and battlefield. Here, you are not alone. Dozens of tradesmen and women compete for attention. Fishmongers wave their slippery catch, cloth sellers display bolts of wool dyed in rich colors, and bakers tempt the hungry with steaming loaves. Your candles are less immediate, less delicious. No one buys them on impulse. They buy them because when night falls, darkness will swallow their homes unless they have a flame. Your skill lies not only in crafting, but in persuasion. You speak of your tallow candles' steady burn, their long hours of light, their price fairer than the smith's stall. You lift your beeswax candles for the wealthier folk to admire, letting the golden surface catch the sun, reminding them that this is the same wax the priests prefer. A single nobleman's glance could make your day if he orders a bundle for his household. You will eat well tonight. But the market is also a place of rivalry. The chandler from across the river might shout louder, boasting that his candles burn longer, his wax purer. He may even attempt to lure your customers away with whispers of lower prices. Sometimes it comes to blows, candle makers squaring off with fists or knives in alleys when competition turns bitter. Other times, disputes are settled before the guild or the town bailiff. But in the moment, standing behind your stall, you must smile, flatter, and bargain. Your livelihood depends on it. Beyond the weekly market, there are the great fair seasonal gatherings that draw people from miles around. These are no ordinary events. Imagine caravans of merchants arriving with goods from distant lands, spices from the east, silks from Italy, salt from the coasts. Musicians play, jugglers perform, pilgrims shuffle through, and nobles stroll beneath banners. For you, the fair is both dazzling and overwhelming. You bring your finest work, for customers here are not just villagers, they are lords. Merchants, abbots, and travelers with coin enough to buy in bulk. At a great fair, your candles may travel farther than you ever could. A Flemish merchant might purchase them for a church across the sea. A noblewoman might pack them in her luggage for a journey to another castle. Each sale extends your reach, sending your work into homes, chapels, and monasteries beyond your imagining. In a way, your light travels, carrying your craft with it. But fairs are not only about profit. They are about spectacle, about proving your worth. You polish your stall until it gleams. You stack your candles in careful order, beeswax here, tallow there, each bundle tied with twine. You may even craft special shapes to catch the eye spirals, braids, or candles molded with stamped designs. Innovation is risky, frowned upon by the guild, but fairs demand boldness. If you impress a wealthy buyer here, your reputation could rise for years. Yet trade is fickle. Perhaps the weather turns and rain drives customers indoors. Perhaps thieves prowl, waiting to snatch your coins as you pack up at dusk. Perhaps another chandler, wealthier than you, sets up a stall grander, brighter, undercutting your prices until you can sell nothing. Each fair is a gamble, a test of resilience as much as skill. And there is another danger: the tax collector. Every sale in the market or fair is subject to tolls and fees. The lord of the land, the town council, even the church all demand their share. A careless trader who withholds payment may find his stall seized or his goods confiscated. You count your coins carefully, knowing that much of what jingles in your pouch must soon leave it again. Still, there are moments of triumph. A poor farmer, eyes weary, buys a single stub of tallow from you, pressing it to his chest as though it were treasure. He will carry it home to his cottage, light it while his family eats, and for those few hours, they will not sit in darkness. A priest may approach and order a dozen beeswax candles for an upcoming feast, promising that your work will shine upon the altar itself. Or perhaps a noble servant, gloved and stern, selects your best wares for the lady's chamber. In those moments, pride stirs in you. Your craft is not glamorous, not celebrated, but it is necessary. You are the quiet thread woven into daily life, unseen but essential. When the market ends, you gather your unsold candles, wrap them in cloth, and trudge homeward. Your feet ache, your voice is hoarse, your purse is lighter than you hoped. Yet tomorrow you will melt, pour, and dip again. The cycle continues. And so long as men and women fear the dark, so long as churches call for light on holy days, and so long as homes need warmth and comfort in the night, your trade will endure. The market is chaos, the fair is risk, but through both runs a single truth: without you, the world would stumble in shadows. The life of a candle maker is steady, rhythmic wax melting, wicks dipping, candles cooling. But sometimes history itself barges into your workshop, uninvited and merciless. Plague and fire, the twin terrors of the medieval world, never fail to remind you how fragile both life and livelihood truly are. First comes the plague. It sweeps into town with a silence that quickly turns into chaos. A merchant coughs at the market, a child grows feverish, a monk collapses during prayer. Before long, the bells toll day and night, their solemn clang announcing yet another soul gone. Streets empty, shops shutter, and even the bravest avoid crowded places, but you cannot close your doors. In times of plague, candles are in greater demand than ever before. Death fills every corner of the town, and with it comes a hunger for light. Families buy candles to burn for the dying, believing the flame will comfort their loved one's passing soul. Priests demand endless supplies for funerals, for vigils, for masses said in hastily dug graveyards where coffins lie stacked. The wealthier citizens order thick, long-burning beeswax candles to guard them through the night, as if a pure flame might shield them from infection. Even the poorest scrape together coins for a single stub of tallow, desperate to keep vigil when sickness enters their home. Your workshop becomes a place of both profit and dread. You work day and night, dipping, molding, trimming, while outside the air reeks of death and smoke from the burning of infected homes. Customers arrive with fear etched into their faces, coins slick with sweat, sometimes too weak to stand. You handle the money carefully, but no amount of caution feels safe. The plague spreads not only through breath, they say, but through cloth, through touch, through the very air. And so, while your trade thrives, your heart hammers with fear that each order might be your last. Then there is fire. Plague steals lives quietly, but fire devours loudly, furiously, leaving nothing but charred ruins. In a town of timber houses and thatched roofs, flame is an ever-present threat. A single spark from a hearth, a candle toppled in a rush, or a careless torch carried too close to a wall, any of these can set the town ablaze. And always, always people look to you when it happens. The chandlers, they mutter. The candles. A flame from your workshop may light a holy altar, but if it strays, it can just as easily consume a neighborhood. You know, the guilt of hearing that a blaze began with a candle knocked from a table. You know the whispers that follow. Was the candle poorly made? Did the wick burn too fast? Was the tallow mixed wrong, causing it to drip, to flare, to fall? The guild enforces rules to prevent such disastrous wicks of the right length, wax of proper consistency. But no law can tame fire once it escapes. You have seen it, the roar of flames leaping from roof to roof, the cries of families as they flee, the ringing of the town bell as men form bucket lines from the river. Ash floats through the air, choking in black, and when it clears, whole streets lie in ruin. And yet, after the fire, your trade is needed once more. Families rebuilding their homes require light. Churches holding masses for the dead order more candles. Fire destroys, plague kills, but always people return to you. They need flame, even when flame has betrayed them. There is a strange irony in it. You are both feared and needed. Your craft brings comfort, but also risk. Some towns have ordinances forbidding open flames after nightfall, except for those in enclosed lanterns. Others fine chandlers if their candles are blamed for blazes. But even in the strictest towns, the demand never ceases. Without candles, there is only darkness, and people fear darkness more than they fear fire. You, more than anyone, understand the fragile line between safety and disaster. Each wick you trim too short might flare dangerously. Each wick left too long may drown in its own wax. Each batch of tallow that is too soft might cause a candle to lean, to drip, to fall. Precision is your shield against catastrophe. You carry that burden silently, knowing that every flame you release into the world holds within it both salvation and ruin. During plague years, you light your own candles in prayer, hoping the sickness will pass your door. During fire seasons, you keep a bucket of water close to your workshop, knowing that one spill of wax could mean more than lost profit. These are the shadows that cling to your trade, the price of working with flame in a world always teetering between light and destruction. And yet, you continue. You must. The town depends on you, even if it never thanks you. Your hands, calloused and burned, keep shaping the very substance that can bring peace to the dying, hope to the grieving, and vision to the blind night. For in the medieval world, plague may darken the streets and fire may blacken the skies. But only your candles can hold back the shadows, if only for a while. Step into a medieval home, and the truth of your craft becomes clear. These houses are dark. Thick wooden beams, narrow windows, shutters closed against the wind. The inside feels like a cave. Even during the day, light barely seeps in, shadows clinging to every corner. At night, without a flame, the home is swallowed by blackness, and so the candle becomes more than a tool. It becomes survival. The poor live by the dim, sputtering glow of tallow. A single stub may have to last for days, lit only in the evening as families gather for their meager supper. Children squint at their bread, women stitch clothes by guesswork, and men sit in silence, conserving the flame. The smell is strong, rancid, animal, unpleasant, but it is better than nothing. Sometimes the candle is not even set in a holder, but wedged into a lump of clay, or the neck of a broken bottle, dripping fat down the table. For wealthier households, the scene is different. Beeswax fills their halls with a golden glow. The flame burns steady, casting warm light on tapestries, goblets, and richly carved furniture. Nobles dine with dozens of candles arranged along the table, their feast shimmering with reflections of wine and silver. The wax does not stink. Instead, it leaves a faint sweetness in the air, the ghost of honey. To dine by beeswax is not simply to see, but to show status. Guests know, upon entering such a hall, that they are in the presence of wealth. But whether rich or poor, the candle governs rhythm. The length of the wick, the time it takes to burn, these mark the passing of hours in a world without clocks. Some even cut notches into long candles, measuring time by how far the wax has melted. Monks use such candles to time prayers, and households use them to pace chores or meals. Your candle, once bought, becomes the keeper of hours. Candles also guard the night. Imagine the farmer's wife placing a stub beside her child's bed to chase away spirits. Imagine the merchant's family leaving one burning in the window so travelers can find their way. Candles are not only practical but protective. In the minds of many, the flame keeps demons at bay, keeps witches from entering, keeps misfortune from settling in. A home without light is vulnerable, exposed to both earthly and unseen dangers. There is romance too. A young couple sits by the flickering glow, their faces half hidden in shadow, whispering words that daylight would forbid. Lovers exchange candles as tokens, their flame symbolizing devotion. To gift a beeswax candle is to give a piece of sweetness and light, a gesture more lasting than flowers, more intimate than jewels. And yet, the household flame is also fragile. A gust of wind through the shutter, a child's careless hand, a pet brushing too close, and the flame dies. Darkness falls with a swiftness that feels like drowning. Panic rises as the family fumbles to relight it. Sometimes they succeed, other times the night remains, long and cold. Every candle you sell carries this possibility. That is why they buy more, hoarding them for emergencies, guarding them carefully in small boxes or clay jars. In the poorer homes, thrift shapes everything. Ends of candles are saved, remelted, redipped. Wicks are shortened and reused until they crumble. Some mix bits of wax with Russia's long grasses dipped in fat to stretch the flame further. These rush lights burn fast and uneven, but they are cheap. They are a rival to your trade, but never a true replacement, for no rush can burn with the dignity of a candle. For the wealthy, extravagance fills the halls. In castles and manors, entire candelabras are lit at once, turning night into day. Servants scurry to trim wicks, replacing candles before the flame sputters. Guests marvel at the brilliance, the abundance of golden light. To burn so much beeswax is to declare power. It says, we can afford to turn darkness into dawn at will, and always. At the center of it is you, the anonymous craftsman whose hands shaped the wax, who twisted the wick, who gave the household its measure of night and day. They may never know your name. They may never thank you. But in their laughter at dinner, in their whispered prayers at bedtime, in their last look before sleep, your work is there, flickering silently. For in every medieval home, from the humblest hut to the grandest castle, the candle is not just light. It is memory, protection, rhythm, and hope. And you, the candle maker, are the quiet supplier of all these things, standing behind the scenes, holding back the dark one flame at a time. In the medieval world, light is never ordinary. It marks every great moment, every sorrowful hour, and every celebration that punctuates life. Your candles, humble though they may seem, become participants in the most profound ceremonies, weddings, funerals, and festivals that shape the rhythm of society. Weddings are first. The hall is decorated with flowers, banners, and above all, candles. Tall beeswax pillars stand on the altar, casting a golden glow across the faces of the bride, the groom, and the priest. Guests marvel at the soft flicker, which transforms the simple wooden beams of a parish church into a place of solemn beauty. The bride may hold a small candle in her hands, its flame steady, symbolizing purity, hope, and the light of love to guide the couple through their life together. Your work is essential here. Too short a candle, and the ceremony is rushed. Too long, and it risks burning unevenly, dripping wax upon holy robes or polished floors. The perfect candle ensures the ceremony unfolds with dignity, every detail illuminated, every shadow tamed. You feel a strange pride in knowing that when couples swear their vows, your hands have touched their happiness. Funerals, by contrast, are marked by gravity. The air is thick with sorrow, the streets lined with mourners. Candles are carried beside coffins, illuminating the path to the church or the graveyard. Beeswax is preferred, for it burns clean, symbolizing the soul rising to heaven. Families often purchase dozens of candles for vigils that last the night, watching as the wick slowly consumes itself, mirroring the fragility of life. Even in death, your craft has power. You provide the light that comforts the grieving, that guides prayers, that punctuates the toll of the funeral bell. And sometimes, in the hush of the mourners, you hear whispered thanks, prayers for the Maker who has provided more than wax, who has given light to the soul itself. Then there are the festivals. Saints' days, harvest celebrations, market fairs, and holy holidays all require candles in abundance. The town square fills with the glow of hundreds, sometimes thousands, of flames. Children run through the streets with small tapers, their faces illuminated by the golden light. Musicians play, the smell of roasting meat fills the air, and the clergy lead processions with long, unbroken rows of candles held high like a river of fire. Your candles are central to these displays. A festival without them is incomplete, dull, and lifeless. From small votive tapers to enormous ceremonial pillars, each one is carefully chosen for its role. The quality of the wax, the evenness of the burn, the steadiness of the flame, everything matters. A single flicker, a sputter of smoke, a candle that falls, can mar the solemnity of the occasion or provoke whispers among the crowd. You understand that, in a sense, your work is never truly finished. The moment the candle leaves your hands, its destiny is tied to rituals, beliefs, and human emotion. Even in private homes, festivals are celebrated with light. A humble farmer may hang candles along beams or in windows to mark the feast of the harvest. And noblemen may line hallways with glowing pillars for the feast of a saint. Your candles carry their stories, their prayers, their joys. Each flame is more than fire. It is witness to hope, grief, devotion, and celebration. Yet, with every honor comes pressure. Orders for special occasions are exacting. Weddings demand perfection. Funerals demand dignity. Festivals demand abundance. Late deliveries, poor quality wax, or uneven burn can ruin the entire effect. Apprentices scramble to meet deadlines, dipping, molding, trimming, while you pace the workshop, counting each candle, praying each will hold its flame as intended. Mistakes are unforgivable, for your candles are not just objects, they are participants in human emotion and ritual. The town recognizes your skill, though few know your name. Priests nod with approval, noble servants leave generous tips, and villagers whisper that your candles burn steadier than any other in the county. You are both anonymous and revered, a quiet architect of light in a world that fears the dark, both literal and spiritual. By evening, after a day of ceremonies, your workshop smells of wax, soot, and incense. Candles stand in neat rows, awaiting tomorrow's orders. Outside, the town sleeps under the flickering remains of your work, the soft glow spilling from windows, guiding weary travelers, lighting the streets, illuminating faces filled with wonder, grief, and celebration. And in the quiet moments when the last candle is trimmed, when the last flame is banked, you realize that your labor is far more than craft. You are a keeper of memory, a guardian of light, a participant in human rights that span the spectrum of life itself. Without you, the shadows would reign. With you, even the humblest flicker becomes sacred, a small miracle of fire and wax that carries the heart of the town. No candlemaker stands alone. Behind every master, there are apprentices, boys, and young men bound to the workshop for years, learning not only the craft, but the discipline, the patience, and the endurance it demands. Your hands, hardened by wax and tallow, guide theirs. Your eyes, trained to spot a subtle flaw, teach them to see what most cannot. And in doing so, you create a legacy. Apprentices arrive at dawn, often wide-eyed and timid. Some are eager, their spirits bright, ready to embrace the smell of wax and the sting of hot tallow. Others are reluctant, sent by families who cannot afford to feed them in other ways. They sweep floors, fetch water, cut wicks, and clean cauldrons before touching wax at all. The early days are brutal, and the weak or clumsy are often dismissed or fail to endure. But the ones who remain, the ones who survive the heat and monotony, begin to learn the secret rhythms of the craft. You teach them how to measure tallow with precision, how to melt it without scorching, how to dip wick so the candle hardens straight and even. You show them the delicate art of blending beeswax, of trimming wicks to the perfect length, and of judging which candles are fit for noble orders, which for the market, and which for the church. Each lesson is exacting, each movement drilled until it becomes instinct. Yet mentorship is not without tension. Some apprentices chafe under strict rules, testing patience with mistakes, slow work, or insolence. Rivalries emerge. Boys whisper against one another, compete for tasks, or seek the master's favor. Sometimes one apprentice sneaks extra wax or tries to shortcut a dipping process, hoping to gain recognition. Each day you balance encouragement and discipline, knowing that harshness may break them and leniency may ruin the craft, but there are moments of triumph. The first time a boy dips a candle correctly, you feel the same pride that once filled your own chest when your first perfect taper emerged. You recognize that the flame in his hands is the continuation of your work, a flicker that will outlive you if you guide it carefully. And slowly, as years pass, apprentices grow into journeymen, leaving the workshop to travel and practice elsewhere, carrying your lessons and reputation with them. Legacy is never just technique, it is philosophy. You teach patience, for dipping and molding candles is slow work. You teach precision, for a crooked candle is more than ugly, it is dangerous. You teach respect for the guild rules, for customers, for the sacred spaces where your candles will shine. In these ways, your influence spreads, shaping not only wax, but the moral and practical fiber of your successors. Sometimes an apprentice will return after years away, now a master themselves, bringing news from distant towns, offering advice or gifts, or seeking guidance on complex commissions. In those moments, you see the web of your influence. The small flicker of light you once tended has grown, multiplied in hands you help shape, and travels to homes, churches, and fairs you will never see. Yet the life of a mentor is not without sorrow. Some apprentices fail, leaving with shame or resentment. Others betray the trust, selling substandard candles, competing unfairly, or flaunting guild rules. And every day brings the constant awareness that one small mistake, yours or theirs, can end in disaster. A candle that flares, a fire that spreads, a funeral without dignity. The stakes of passing down your knowledge are immense, for the work is more than crafted as life and death, light and shadow. Still you persevere. You watch as the workshop fills with the rhythm of learning, the scrape of wicks being cut, the hiss of wax as it meets water, the slow stacking of finished candles on shelves. Apprentices stumble, correct, and repeat, while you oversee, guiding hands, correcting posture, whispering secrets of the wax that only decades of practice can teach. In your quiet moments, you realize that this is your true legacy, not the coins in your purse, not the candles sold to churches or nobles, but the living flame carried by the young men who learned from you. When you are gone, they will dip, mold, and trim, ensuring that your craft endures, that the light you have tended continues to chase back the dark in homes, streets, and sacred halls. And so, every evening, when the last candle is banked and the apprentices are dismissed, you sit before the hearth and reflect. The workshop smells of wax and smoke, of effort and patience. You feel the satisfaction of work completed, of knowledge passed down, of a craft preserved against the inexorable march of time. Your life, measured in wicks and dips, may seem small, but through your apprentices it becomes vast. Even as you grow older, as your hands stiffen and burns scar your skin, the workshop remains alive with your teachings. Each apprentice who departs carries a piece of you with them, a flicker that will burn brighter in new towns, new churches, new homes. The candle maker is never truly alone. Through those he trains, his work and spirit endure. In the medieval world, where light is precious and darkness is feared, this is the most enduring power of all, to pass on the flame. Even within the strict rules of the guild, creativity finds a way. Every master candle maker carries secrets, techniques, and experiments that push beyond tradition. These are not written in books or taught openly. They are whispered across generations, passed from hand to hand, guarded fiercely. Some bring beauty, some bring danger, and some are considered almost heretical. You have your own experiments. In the quiet of your workshop, long after apprentices have left, you test new blends of wax. Beeswax alone burns clean, but adding small amounts of resin can make it smell fragrant, filling the air with pine or incense-like notes. A drop of tallow may extend burn time, but too much risks dripping. A pinch of herbs, carefully dried and ground, can imbue the flame with faint aroma and a deeper glow. Each batch is a balance between light, smell, and safety. Too daring and the candle may flare, smoke, or crack. But when perfected, the results are magnificent candles that glow longer, smell sweeter, and delight the senses of all who witness them. Shape is another frontier. Most candles are plain cylinders or stubs, but you dream of spirals, braids, and stamped patterns. You carve molds from wood or clay, pressing the wax into intricate designs that catch the light in unusual ways. Guild rules frown upon such flamboyance, preferring simplicity and uniformity. Yet fairs demand spectacle and noble orders delight in novelty. A candle shaped like a fleur-de-lis or a twisted spiral that catches the flicker just so can bring fame to a maker who dares innovate. Some techniques, however, are truly forbidden. Certain additives, oils, powdered minerals, even metals can create strange colors or effects in the flame, but they are dangerous. The Guild warns that these materials can ignite unpredictably or release foul smoke. There are stories of apprentices burned, workshops set ablaze, and masters fined or excommunicated for reckless experiments. Yet curiosity drives you. You weigh risk against reward, knowing that discovery may elevate your craft beyond the ordinary. Candles are also political. In certain households, a candle's color or scent carries meaning. White for purity, red for celebration, black for mourning. You experiment subtly with dyes and natural pigments to create hues that hold through burning. You study how saffron, crushed berries, or powdered chalk affects the wax, how each reacts to heat, how the flame reflects the color. Some dyes are stable. Others fade or darken. Only by trial and careful observation can you master these subtleties. Innovation requires patience. You prepare dozens of small candles, each with slight variations, and watch them burn for hours, noting the subtle changes in flame, scent, and consistency. You mark each batch carefully, recording in your mind what works and what fails. Apprentices watch in awe as you manipulate wax drip by drip, sharing only the lessons safe for them to know. The true alchemy, the secret knowledge, remains yours alone. There is also a spiritual dimension to your experiments. Candle makers have long believed that certain shapes, scents, and blends influence prayers, luck, or protection. A twisted candle might confuse spirits. A lavender-scented taper could calm the anxious. A pillar with embedded herbs might safeguard a household. You experiment with these ideas cautiously, blending belief with craft. Not all orders call for this. Some fear superstition. But for the faithful, your subtle innovations carry power, even if unseen. Yet with creativity comes danger. Too bold, and the Guild intervenes. They inspect workshops, question apprentices, demand explanations for strange effects. Neighbors gossip, fearing heresy or witchcraft. There are whispers that candle makers who bend the rules too far invite misfortune or divine wrath. You tread carefully, knowing that a single misstep could ruin your reputation, destroy your livelihood, or even bring punishment from the town or church. The rewards, however, can be immense. A single perfect candle, fragrant, steady, and beautifully shaped, can secure a noble patron for years. A church may order hundreds for a special feast, trusting only your skill to deliver flawless wax. Fairs become showcases for your artistry, drawing attention from merchants and travelers far and wide. Your name spreads, whispered among those who appreciate more than mere light. Ultimately, your experiments are a dance between safety and ambition, between tradition and invention. They are the reason your candles are not merely functional, they are extraordinary. The flame that burns in a cathedral, in a noble hall, or on a festival night carries more than wax and wick. It carries artistry, imagination, and the quiet rebellion of a master who dares to explore beyond the ordinary. And in this, you understand that your craft is more than a trade. It is a living, breathing art form. Every experiment, every innovation, every secret tucked away in the heart of your workshop adds to the history of candle making, leaving a legacy that will influence apprentices, rivals, and the countless flames that illuminate the medieval world. Your candles are no longer just light, they are stories, miracles, experiments in fire, wax, and imagination. And as you dip your next taper, watching it harden with perfection, you know that the flicker it will cast tomorrow may be the first of many extraordinary flames, each carrying your secret, your skill, and your soul. As the sun dips below the horizon, a different world awakens. Streets that were bustling with merchants and children during the day now fall silent, shrouded in shadow. In a medieval town, darkness is not just an absence of light, it is a menace. Thieves, vandals, and misfortune all thrive in the night. And in this darkness, your work as a candle maker becomes critical. You are not merely a tradesman. You are a guardian of safety, a silent protector ensuring that life continues even after sunset. Every household that owns a candle is indebted to you in ways that may go unnoticed. For the poor, a single stub of tallow burns slowly in a clay holder, allowing a family to navigate their home without injury. Children avoid stumbling over rough wooden floors, women can sew or cook safely, and men can read letters by the dim flicker of the flame. For the wealthy, pillars of beeswax illuminate hallways, staircases, and courtyards, preventing accidents and deterring would-be intruders. In every case, your candles are the barrier between safety and chaos. The town watch depends on you as well. Patrols of armed men and watchmen move through the streets, their lanterns casting long shadows across walls and cobblestones. But lanterns are expensive, heavy, and unreliable. Candles serve as both backup and supplement. The flicker of your wax in a holder can signal safety to the patrols, guide travelers lost in the alleys, and illuminate gates and bridges that would otherwise be hidden in blackness. Without your work, the night would be a far more dangerous place. But vigilance is not without risk. Fires are an ever-present threat in darkened homes or workshops. A candle knocked over in panic, a stray spark from a hearth, or a drunken servant mishandling a taper can ignite a building. You know the stories: well, entire streets consumed in hours, families left homeless, goods destroyed. The responsibility weighs heavily. Every wick you cut, every candle you mold, carries within it both protection and peril. The smallest mistake could turn a tool of safety into a weapon of disaster. Your own nights are long and disciplined. You may be called upon to assist in emergencies, lighting streets when lanterns fail, supplying candles to hospitals or quarantine houses, or even aiding the watchman in tracking miscreants whose movements are hidden in shadow. Often you must move silently through alleys, carrying bundles of wax, alert for threats. The smell of smoke is familiar, but so is the tension in the air, the knowledge that one misstep can mean injury or death. Yet there is also strategy in the craft. You advise townsfolk on placement: candles in windows for signaling, along stairways to prevent falls, near gates for visibility. You show them how to trim wicks for maximum longevity, how to bank flames to last through the night. You educate them on safety, blending your craft with knowledge, teaching that light is not mere luxury but necessity, a shield against the darkness. There is poetry in this duty. You see families moving safely through dim corridors, travelers guided to the inn, children reading their lessons by the soft glow. The glow is quiet, unobtrusive, yet essential. People may never thank you, but their lives are undeniably safer because of your work. In a world without electric light, your candles are the thin but unbroken line between comfort and danger. During certain seasons, your responsibility intensifies. Winter nights are long, stretching for hours while families huddle in their homes. Festivals and holy days demand more candles than ever, each flame guarding rituals, prayers, and celebrations from the overwhelming darkness outside. Even a single extinguished candle can disrupt ceremonies or cause panic. You work tirelessly to ensure that every home, chapel, and market stall has enough light to weather the night. And there are shadows that no candle can chase. Plague, as you know, creeps quietly through alleys, killing indiscriminately. Fires rage unpredictably. Bandits move in darkness, taking advantage of the unseen. Your candles cannot stop all calamities, but they mitigate them. They are a measure of control in an uncontrollable world, a tangible defense against fear and danger. Guild rules reflect this importance. Poor craftsmanship, uneven burn, or unsafe wax can lead to punishment. Masters are expected to ensure every apprentice learns the full measure of diligence and care. Each candle is a testament not just to skill but to responsibility. A master who fails in this duty risks more than fines. They risk lives, reputation, and the trust of an entire town. Despite the pressure, there is satisfaction. When dawn breaks and the town stirs, you see your work in action. Candles burned evenly through the night, guiding sleep and movement, illuminating rituals and tasks, preventing injury, sustaining life. The flickering flames leave traces of safety and comfort, evidence of a trade that is simultaneously humble and heroic. Your life as a candle maker is thus bound to the rhythm of darkness. By day you craft. By night your creations serve, protecting, guiding, and sustaining. The medieval night is a dangerous realm, but your hands and skill ensure that it is not entirely without order. Each flame you release is a promise that someone, somewhere, may move safely, see clearly, and survive until morning. In this way, your legacy is not measured in wealth or fame, but in the quiet protection of life itself. You are a keeper of the night, a maker of light, a silent guardian whose craft illuminates both the literal and metaphorical darkness of the medieval world. Your reputation as a skilled candle maker does not remain confined to the narrow streets of your medieval town. Word spreads through merchants, travelers, clergy, and nobility that your wax burns brighter, steadier, and longer than any other. Soon, the demand grows beyond your small workshop and the weekly market. Orders arrive from distant villages, monasteries perched on hillsides, and even neighboring towns. Expanding your trade becomes both opportunity and challenge, requiring skill not just in craft but in negotiation, logistics, and trust. The first step is often through itinerant merchants who travel by cart or river, carrying goods from town to town. They visit your workshop, examine your wares, and negotiate bulk orders. Beeswax candles destined for a monastery must meet exacting standards: uniform size, clean scent, unbroken wicks. Tallow candles for peasant households must be cheap, durable, and easily transported. You must balance quantity with quality, ensuring that every candle leaving your hands reflects your skill while satisfying the varying needs of distant customers. Packing for travel is an art in itself. Candles are fragile. A single dent, chip, or cracked wick can ruin hours of labor. You wrap each bundle carefully in straw or cloth, stacking them so that weight does not crush the softer wax. For longer journeys, you include instructions for storage and trimming, knowing that inexperienced hands may mishandle them. A lost shipment can mean both financial disaster and damaged reputation, so precision is as critical in packing as it is in crafting. Trade beyond your town also requires diplomacy. You negotiate with merchants who may be unscrupulous, attempting to reduce your prices or claim higher commissions. Rival candle makers in other towns may spread rumors, claiming that your wax is impure or your technique inferior. You must maintain relationships with trusted contacts, building networks of buyers and sellers who understand the value of quality and reliability. Every shipment is a chance to reinforce your name, to prove that your candles are worth more than a competitor's cheaper alternatives. Monasteries and churches are some of your most important clients. They order hundreds, sometimes thousands of candles for altars, processions, and festivals. The monks are exacting, inspecting each taper for uniformity, scent, and burn time. You are expected to understand their rituals when each candle will be used, how long it must last, and how it should behave during prayers. Delivering perfection is not just a matter of pride. It is a matter of sacred duty. One defective candle in a cathedral could disrupt an entire ceremony, and your reputation as a master is judged by these subtle details. Villages, too, send their orders through messengers or traveling merchants. For them, your candles may be the only reliable light available, essential for reading, sewing, cooking, and safeguarding against nocturnal hazards. You must consider the economics carefully. Too expensive and peasants cannot afford them. Too cheap and your profits vanish. Balancing quality, accessibility, and sustainability is a constant challenge. particularly when transporting fragile goods across rough roads and unpredictable weather. Competition grows as your reach expands. Other candle makers hear of your success and attempt to replicate your methods. Some travel to your town, pretending to learn from you, only to return home and imitate your style. Guilds sometimes intervene, trying to regulate trade and enforce local monopolies. You navigate these challenges with tact, maintaining secrecy in your techniques, carefully selecting apprentices, and negotiating protections through guild membership. Business acumen becomes as important as candle-making skill. At fairs, you showcase your expanding trade. Buyers from neighboring regions marvel at the range of candles on display, from humble tallow stubs to ornate beeswax pillars. Orders are taken on the spot, contracts are negotiated, and partnerships are formed. These gatherings are crucial for building reputation, discovering new markets, and securing a steady flow of income beyond the local community. Success here can propel your name across counties, establishing a legacy that will outlast your lifetime. Yet expanding trade brings new risks. Roads are dangerous. Bandits may intercept shipments, stealing goods and threatening lives. Weather can destroy cargo. Rain softens tallow, extreme heat warps beeswax. Miscommunication with merchants can lead to deliveries arriving late or in poor condition. Each mistake carries consequences, both financial and reputational. Vigilance is required at every step, from crafting to packing, from negotiation to delivery. Despite the risks, expansion brings rewards. Income rises, allowing you to hire additional apprentices, invest in better equipment, and experiment with new techniques. You gain influence within the guild, your advice sought on matters of trade and regulation. Your candles reach places you have never seen, abbeys nestled in distant valleys, towns you have only heard of, and homes where light has always been scarce. Each flame carries a piece of your skill and care, extending your presence across the medieval world. Expanding trade also transforms your perspective. You see the interconnectedness of towns, villages, and cities. You recognize how your work impacts lives far beyond your workshop. A monk's vigil, a farmer's safety, a noble celebration. Your candles are no longer just objects of craft, they are instruments of commerce, culture, and daily life, binding communities together through the simple yet profound necessity of light. Through every shipment, every fair, every distant order, you learn that mastery is not limited to the workshop. Craft, commerce, diplomacy, and foresight converge to define your role. You are more than a maker of wax. You are a facilitator of life, tradition, and survival, extending the reach of light into corners of the medieval world that would otherwise remain dark. In this way, your trade grows not only in wealth but in importance. From a humble workshop in a quiet town, your candles travel far and wide, illuminating homes, churches, and streets, bridging communities and shaping daily life. Each flame is a testament to your skill, your diligence, and your vision, a legacy that expands with every order fulfilled and every distant home lit by your work. The life of a medieval candle maker is not confined to wax and wicks alone. Behind the serene glow of your products lies a complex web of rivalries, alliances, and politics, both within the guild and in the town at large. Candle making is a respected craft, but with respect comes competition, jealousy, and scrutiny. To thrive, you must master not only fire and wax, but also the art of diplomacy, negotiation, and sometimes subtle manipulation. Guilds are the backbone of medieval craft. They enforce rules, regulate prices, train apprentices, and protect quality standards. Membership is both privilege and burden. Within the guild, disputes are common. A fellow master may accuse you of undercutting prices, of using impure wax, or of flouting standards. Apprentices may switch loyalties, carrying secrets to rival workshops. Every candle you produce is watched, every sale scrutinized. One misstep, an ill-trimmed taper, a failed batch, or even a whispered rumor can damage your reputation, perhaps permanently. Rivalries often begin small. A neighboring candle maker produces slightly cheaper tallow stubs, attracting poorer customers. Another boasts of more elaborate pillars for festivals, challenging your aesthetic reputation. You may find apprentices being lured away with promises of higher wages or better opportunities. These tensions escalate quickly in tight-knit communities where craft is identity and success is visibility. Each rival is a threat, but also a mirror forcing you to refine your skills, innovate your products, and protect your secrets with vigilance. Guild meetings are battlegrounds in their own right. Masters gather to debate prices, quality, and practices, but beneath the formal discussion lie undercurrents of ambition and envy. A vote on acceptable wax quality might become an opportunity to tarnish a competitor's reputation. A discussion about apprentices might conceal attempts to recruit promising young men from rival workshops. You learn to read between the lines, to speak carefully, to assert authority without provoking outright hostility. Subtlety is key. Blunt aggression invites retaliation, gossip, and fines. Some rivalries extend beyond the guild into the streets and markets. Merchants may favor one master over another, influencing which candles reach fairs, churches, or noble households. Townspeople spread rumors, often exaggerating flaws or failures. You learn to manage not only your own craft, but also your public image. Every candle you sell becomes a statement. It reflects skill, reliability, and prestige. Each flame must burn clean and steady, not just for practical purposes, but as proof of your mastery in the eyes of friends, rivals, and clients alike. Alliances are equally important. You may form informal partnerships with other masters sharing knowledge, distributing workloads, or jointly supplying large orders. These alliances can protect against competition, provide mutual support during guild disputes, and help manage apprentices. Trust, however, is fragile. A single betrayal, a revealed secret, a hidden batch of impure wax can shatter years of collaboration. Navigating these relationships requires judgment, intuition, and patience, balancing generosity with caution. Sometimes politics within the guild can be downright dangerous. Masters vie for positions of influence, control over apprentices, or authority in setting local regulations. Disputes may escalate to fines, public censure, or the confiscation of goods. Guilds are meant to protect, but they also enforce discipline brutally. You learn to temper ambition with prudence, to engage only when necessary, and to cultivate allies discreetly. A misjudged move can result in social isolation or economic ruin. Rivalries also fuel innovation. Threatened by competitors, you are compelled to experiment with new techniques, designs, and scents. A rival may introduce spiraled tapers or scented pillars, and you must match or surpass them. Competition drives mastery, ensuring that every batch of wax, every carefully trimmed wick, meets the highest standard. In this way, social tension and ambition, while stressful, push your craft forward. Apprentices are often pawns in these rivalries. They may be enticed by rival masters, pressured to reveal techniques, or manipulated to create tension within the workshop. Teaching them loyalty becomes as important as teaching them skill. You instill discipline, caution, and pride in their work, emphasizing that secrets, care, and precision define their reputation and future. The right apprentice, loyal and skilled, can be a powerful asset in navigating guild politics. Despite the pressures, guild politics are not without rewards. Mastery, recognition, and influence bring prestige and protection. Those who survive the intrigues, who balance rivalry with diplomacy, often secure positions of authority within the guild, influence market prices, and dictate standards that competitors must follow. Reputation becomes currency, and every candle you sell strengthens your authority. Ultimately, you learn that the life of a candle maker is as much about social skill as technical ability. Rivalries test patience, alliances require judgment, and guild politics demand constant awareness. Success depends not only on creating light, but on navigating shadows, both literal and metaphorical. Every flame you release carries not only illumination, but also the story of negotiation, competition, and influence that defines your standing in the medieval world. Your craft becomes inseparable from your social acumen. Every taper, pillar, and stub is proof of skill, reputation, and strategy. You understand that mastery is not measured solely in wax and wicks, but in the delicate art of survival, influence, and legacy within a world where light and social power must be earned and defended. In times of peace, your candles are instruments of comfort, ceremony, and survival. But when war descends upon the land, they take on an entirely different significance. Medieval warfare is brutal, chaotic, and often prolonged. Armies move across the countryside, laying siege to towns, castles, and fortresses. Fires, darkness, and uncertainty dominate the battlefield. In such times, your craft shifts from luxury or ritual to necessity, strategy, and even survival. Sieges are particularly dangerous. Castles and towns are surrounded, supplies are cut off, and nights stretch interminably. Food dwindles, morale falters, and fear grows. In these circumstances, candles become lifelines. Soldiers and citizens alike rely on small stubs to light kitchens, guard posts, infirmaries, and command rooms. Each flame is precious. They burn slowly, often rationed with meticulous care, providing just enough light to avoid accidents and maintain basic routines. Your role as a candle maker extends far beyond the workshop. Your products can literally keep a community alive. Beyond domestic use, candles have strategic importance. Military engineers and watchmen depend on steady light to monitor walls, gates, and moats. Messengers navigate darkened streets and alleys with tapers tucked safely in holders. Signal fires, often augmented by your wax-based torches, convey messages across the battlefield or from castle to castle. An army moving under cover of night needs light to maintain order without revealing positions to the enemy. Your candles, carefully packed and rationed, become part of this delicate balance between illumination and concealment. Wartime demand also drives innovation. You experiment with slow-burning tallow, reinforced wicks, and wax blends that resist wind and moisture, ensuring your candles survive treacherous conditions. For the wealthier, you craft long pillars that burn for hours during council meetings, strategic planning, or prayer vigils. Monks and priests, sheltering civilians, or attending to the wounded require reliable light for ritual and care. Every candle is tested not just for quality, but for endurance, adaptability, and reliability under duress. Smuggling and logistics add layers of risk. Towns under siege may have limited access to raw materials. Beeswax may be scarce, tallow limited, and dye or resin unavailable. You must adapt, improvising with what is at hand, sometimes risking travel to dangerous markets or negotiating with merchants in unstable regions. A single misstep, a captured cart, a delayed shipment, a spillage of precious wax can spell disaster for both your livelihood and the survival of those depending on your candles. Conflict also exposes the darker side of your work. Candles are used to burn signals, light armories, or even create distraction fires. While this is far from the quiet, domestic purpose of your craft, it illustrates the versatility and power of light in warfare. Every flicker can reveal or conceal, comfort or alarm. Understanding these dualities becomes essential, particularly if you are called upon by local lords or the town watch to supply strategic resources. Your apprentices, too, are drawn into the theater of conflict. They carry bundles of candles to hospitals, fortifications, and watchtowers, sometimes braving raiders or hostile patrols. You must teach them not only craftsmanship, but discretion, courage, and situational awareness. Each delivery is a lesson in survival as much as trade, reinforcing the connection between your work and the precariousness of medieval life. The psychological impact of candles in conflict cannot be underestimated. In the terror of a siege, a small flame provides reassurance. It signals that life continues, that someone is awake, vigilant, and capable. Soldiers on night patrols find courage in the glow. Civilians, huddled in cellars or barricaded homes, gain comfort knowing that their homes are illuminated, that they are not entirely abandoned to darkness. Your wax becomes more than material. It becomes a symbol of resilience. Even the smallest candle can shift morale. One household with stubs carefully placed along stairs, doorways, and windows prevents falls and accidents in the chaos. One flickering pillar in a command room allows officers to coordinate defenses effectively. One lantern, lit with your crafted wax, guides a lost messenger safely back to town. In each case, your skill directly influences outcomes, bridging the gap between survival and disaster, yet there is tragedy as well. Candle makers themselves are vulnerable. Workshops may be pillaged, stored wax stolen, apprentices conscripted or lost. Supplies vanish, leaving masters scrambling to fulfill both local and military demand. Guilds may collapse under war pressures, enforcing rules inconsistently or not at all. Each day is a test of skill, resilience, and strategy, where survival and livelihood are intertwined. In the end, war transforms the perception of your craft. Candles are no longer luxury or ceremonial accessory, they are instruments of life, guardians of night, and tools of strategy. Your mastery, tested in workshops and fairs, proves its ultimate value in conflict. Each taper and pillar carries responsibility, illuminating paths, sustaining morale, and preserving life amidst destruction and fear. When peace eventually returns, the role of the candlemaker is recognized in subtle ways. Townsfolk remember who supplied steady light in dark times, monasteries recount which masters kept vigil through endless nights, and apprentices carry stories of resilience, bravery, and resourcefulness learned under pressure. Your reputation, forged in both flame and conflict, becomes a legacy not just of skill, but of endurance, courage, and indispensable service to your community. In this crucible, you understand that mastery is not just measured in perfection or beauty, but in utility, reliability, and impact. The medieval night is dangerous, full of unseen threats, but your candles are shields, torches, and beacons, bringing light and hope into the darkest hours of human life. Beyond the practical and commercial, your work as a candlemaker carries a weight of spiritual significance. In the medieval world, light is never merely functional. It is sacred, symbolic, and even magical. Candles are conduits of prayer, shields against evil, and markers of celebration, mourning, and devotion. Every taper you craft is more than wax and wick. It is a vessel for hope, belief, and ritual power. Churches are the most obvious stage for this spiritual dimension. Altars gleam with pillars of beeswax, trimmed to perfection, each flame flickering in rhythm with hymns and prayers. You understand the exact burn times required for masses and vigils, the subtle scent of pure beeswax that complements incense and prayer, the perfect taper for processions that wind through cobblestone streets. A single candle burned too quickly or too unevenly can disrupt ceremonies, interfere with ritual timing, or diminish the solemnity of worship. Your skill ensures that spiritual practices unfold with grace and reverence. But spiritual power extends beyond the church walls. Many households rely on candles for protective rituals. Herbs embedded in wax, specially shaped tapers, or colored candles are believed to ward off evil spirits, bring luck, or mark transitions from life to death. You experiment subtly with these traditions, crafting candles that honor superstition while maintaining safety. Lavender for calm, rosemary for memory, red for vitality. Each choice carries symbolic meaning, and you carefully balance lore with craftsmanship. Certain rituals demand secrecy. Mystics and seers may request candles for divination, hidden ceremonies, or protective wards. They seek your discretion as well as your skill, trusting you to create objects that will be handled with reverence and care. Some candles must burn without scent. Some must be embedded with powders or oils that alter the flame subtly. Such commissions are rare but highly respected, reflecting the trust placed in your craft and the perceived mystical potency of your work. Guild rules typically frown upon overtly magical practices, fearing heresy or superstition. You navigate these restrictions carefully. Publicly, your candles serve ordinary purposes. Privately, you explore these esoteric applications with subtlety, ensuring that the flame fulfills both practical and spiritual roles. You learn that light itself has power, a steady glow inspires courage, a dim flicker evokes reflection, and the careful placement of candles shapes emotion and focus. Festivals are times when your candles become symbols of communal belief. Easter, All Saints' Day, and other holy days require dozens or hundreds of tapers for rituals that draw entire towns together. Each flame reflects devotion, unites congregants, and marks the rhythm of sacred time. Your work transforms from trade to art, orchestrating light in a way that heightens reverence and participation. One misjudged wick or uneven burn could disrupt the spiritual experience, reminding you that your role carries moral as well as technical responsibility. Superstition also governs daily life. Candles are believed to ward off disease, protect infants, and even guide souls in the afterlife. Funerary candles, carefully trimmed and timed to burn during wakes, carry profound significance. You craft these with attention to both flame and symbolism, aware that families place deep trust in your skill. Your hands shape not just wax, but hope, comfort, and remembrance. In addition to religious and household uses, candles play a role in the mystical imagination of the time. Stories of haunted houses, spirits, and miraculous visions often involve light. A candle flickering at night might be interpreted as a sign or a warning. As a master, you are aware of how your craft interacts with these beliefs, guiding communities subtly, shaping perception, and maintaining the boundary between practical light and spiritual awe. Your apprentices absorb these lessons as well. Beyond cutting wicks and molding wax, you teach them to respect the sacred, to understand the symbolism of light, and to approach every commission with reverence. They learn that a poorly crafted candle is not just a product, it is a disruption of ritual, a diminishment of faith, and a failure in duty. Skill, patience, and mindfulness converge in this dimension of your work, blending craft with morality. Sometimes, the mystical overlaps with politics. Nobles may commission candles for ceremonies that reinforce their power or divine right. Town leaders may use light to influence perception, control crowds, or signal authority. In these cases, your craft becomes a tool of influence, where the placement, quality, and symbolism of candles have consequences beyond immediate perception. A single misjudgment could affect not only spiritual experience, but social and political outcomes. Ultimately, the spiritual dimension elevates your craft from trade to vocation. Each candle carries your skill, your judgment, and your understanding of human belief. Flames illuminate not only space, but imagination, guiding minds and hearts through ritual, superstition, and devotion. You recognize that your work intersects with the profound, shaping perception, offering comfort, and sustaining faith in a world of uncertainty, danger, and awe. In quiet moments when the last candle of the evening burns down in a private chapel or household, you reflect on your responsibility. You are more than a maker of light. You are a keeper of trust, a facilitator of devotion, and a subtle guardian of spiritual life. Each taper, pillar, or stub is a bridge between the material and the sacred, a tangible expression of care, belief, and mastery. Your legacy, therefore, extends far beyond commerce, craft, or comfort. Through your candles, you touch faith, superstition, and hope. You illuminate not only rooms and streets, but hearts and minds, ensuring that light literal and symbolic endures in the lives of those who depend upon it. In this way, your work transcends the ordinary, becoming a quiet yet powerful force in the medieval world. Time, as it does for all, begins to weigh upon you. Hands once steady and precise grow calloused, joints stiffen, and eyes strain to measure wax and wick with the same keen accuracy you once possessed. The rhythm of daily work, the dipping, molding, trimming, and testing of candles becomes more laborious, and you find yourself relying increasingly on apprentices to manage the finer details. Yet with age comes perspective. The urgency of youth gives way to reflection, pride in mastery, and the desire to leave a lasting legacy. Apprentices, once learners struggling to follow your instructions, now carry the potential to extend your craft far beyond your own lifetime. You hand down not only techniques how to select the purest beeswax, how to blend tallow with resin, how to maintain a perfect wick, but also the intangible wisdom of vigilance, patience, and discretion. You teach them how to read the subtle behaviors of flame, how to adjust burn rates, and how to anticipate the needs of patrons. Every lesson is infused with decades of experience, knowledge honed through experimentation, rivalry, and triumph. Mentorship becomes your primary focus. Each apprentice is a reflection of your skill, reputation, and values. You instill in them a respect for the craft and its sacred and practical significance, reminding them that a candle is not merely wax and wick, but a bearer of light, comfort, and sometimes hope. Through them, your influence stretches into distant towns, monasteries, and households, ensuring that your standards and innovations endure even when your hands can no longer wield the tools with precision. As your physical strength declines, you delegate more of the day-to-day labor, reserving your own efforts for the delicate and complex tasks that require years of practice skill. You supervise the dipping of large candles for festivals, inspect batches for color consistency and purity, and advise on experiments with new wax blends or scents. Your presence is authority itself. Apprentices and journeymen defer to your judgment, knowing that a master's eye can detect flaws invisible to the inexperienced. This period of transition is not without challenge. Rival candle makers, sensing vulnerability, may attempt to encroach upon your markets or poach apprentices. Guild politics continue, though perhaps with less intensity, yet the underlying currents of competition remain. Maintaining your reputation requires careful attention, public appearances at fairs, fulfillment of important orders, and meticulous oversight of apprentices' work. Even as your hands tire, your mind must remain sharp, vigilant, and strategic. The twilight of your career also brings reflection on the ephemeral nature of life and craft. You consider the countless candles you have made, the families you have guided safely through darkness, the ceremonies illuminated, the prayers and rituals attended. Each flame represents effort, skill, and care, yet all eventually burn down. In this recognition of impermanence, you find a deeper appreciation for the enduring value of knowledge passed on, the apprentices trained, and the innovations introduced. Legacy becomes your true focus. You also begin to archive your techniques and observations, creating careful notes for apprentices to study long after your hands are still. The subtleties of wax quality, wick tension, scent blending, and burn time are all recorded with the precision of a scholar. You may even include warnings about the risks of experimentation, the politics of the guild, and lessons learned from competition, sieges, and festivals. These records serve as a guide for future masters, a testament to a lifetime devoted to craft and community. The social role of the candle maker in your later years becomes both symbolic and practical. Townsfolk and guild members regard you with respect, consulting you for advice and guidance. Your workshop, once bustling with apprentices learning the basics, now functions as a center of expertise, where questions about technique, trade, and ritual are answered with authority. You are a repository of both tangible skills and cultural knowledge, a living bridge between generations. Despite physical decline, your creativity and curiosity persist. You continue to experiment, though more cautiously, exploring subtle variations in wax blends, wick treatments, or molds. The lessons of decades of fire, light, commerce, and ritual inform each new idea, ensuring that your innovations maintain the balance of safety, function, and beauty that has defined your career. Even in advanced age, you contribute meaningfully to the evolution of the craft. Preparation for succession is critical. You select 1 or 2 apprentices to inherit responsibility for the workshop, mentoring them in not only candle making but also business, guild relations, and the subtleties of client management. These chosen successors carry the promise of sustaining your reputation, continuing your innovations, and preserving the delicate balance of craft, commerce, and spirituality that you have cultivated over decades. The final years of your career are quieter, filled with reflection, teaching, and observation. You watch younger hands dip candles with care, guide them in rituals, advise on trade disputes, and note subtle improvements in flame or scent. The rhythm of your life slows, but the essence of your work endures in every candle that leaves the workshop. You have transitioned from laborer to master, mentor, and guardian of knowledge. As your eyesight dims and hands stiffen, you take solace in knowing that the light you have created, both literal and symbolic, will continue to illuminate homes, streets, altars, and hearts long after your own flame fades. You are remembered not for a single candle, but for a lifetime spent perfecting a craft that shaped daily life, ritual, and culture. The legacy of your work is the enduring illumination of the medieval world, carried forward by apprentices who honor your skill, discipline, and vision. Your life as a candle maker comes full circle. From the eager beginnings of learning through rivalry, innovation, and the trials of conflict and commerce, to the quiet satisfaction of mentorship and legacy, every stage has been bound to light. Though your hands may tremble and your steps falter, the flames you nurtured continue to glow, a testament to a life of skill, diligence, and enduring influence. The sun rises and sets as it always has, indifferent to the lives it illuminates. Yet, in the quiet corners of the medieval world, your light persists. Long after your hands have grown weak and your body has tired, the candles you created, the apprentices you trained, and the innovations you pioneered continue to shape life, ritual, and culture. The legacy of a master candle maker is not measured merely in wax or commerce, but in the enduring presence of light, both literal and symbolic, across generations. Your workshop, once alive with the chatter of apprentices and the steady rhythm of dipping and molding, now thrives under the hands of your protégés. Each flame they produce carries not only the craftsmanship you instilled, but the philosophy and vigilance that have defined your life. They trim wicks with care, blend waxes to perfection, and maintain the delicate balance between function, beauty, and safety. Through them, your methods and standards survive, ensuring that your influence remains in the everyday lives of townsfolk, clergy, and distant villagers who rely on your craft. In homes, the flicker of candles reminds families of your work. A mother teaching her child to read by candlelight, a monk lighting a vigil in a quiet chapel, or a guard pacing the town walls all are beneficiaries of a lifetime of dedication. These are moments you will never witness directly, yet they testify to the subtle and profound impact of your labor. Each flame is a continuation of your vision, an extension of your hands into places and times you will never see. Your influence reaches beyond the practical. In ceremonies, rituals, and superstitions, your candles become instruments of memory, devotion, and emotion. Weddings, funerals, festivals, and prayers unfold with a grace that depends in part on the steady, reliable glow of your craft. You have become a silent partner in the spiritual and emotional lives of countless individuals, ensuring that light and all that it represents remains present during moments of joy, sorrow, and reflection. Even in the broader cultural landscape, your work has resonance. Apprentices carry your techniques to other towns and regions, establishing new workshops and spreading knowledge. Innovations you introduced, refined wax blends, improved wick designs, or novel candle shapes become standard practice. Guild regulations may reference your methods, and rivals, once wary of your skills, adopt your innovations as benchmarks of quality. In this way, your influence shapes the evolution of the craft itself, leaving a mark that transcends your own lifespan. The metaphorical aspect of your legacy is equally profound. Candles represent not only physical illumination, but also guidance, vigilance, and resilience. By perfecting the craft, you have shown that light, whether in homes, streets, or sacred spaces, requires patience, skill, and care. The discipline and foresight you cultivated ripple through generations, teaching apprentices and communities alike that mastery is more than technique. It is the thoughtful stewardship of tools, trust, and human need. Memory, too, plays a role in your enduring presence. Townsfolk remember the master whose candles kept their streets and homes safe, whose wicks guided them through rituals and celebrations, and whose expertise ensured reliability when it mattered most. Stories are told, apprentices recall lessons learned, and guild members honor the contributions you made to the community and craft. In this way, your name becomes intertwined with the very idea of light and reliability, a touchstone for both skill and moral responsibility. Your life's work also serves as inspiration. Young apprentices see in your story the value of dedication, the rewards of careful practice, and the importance of balancing craft with commerce, ethics, and diplomacy. They learn that true mastery is not measured solely by product, wealth, or fame, but by the sustained impact on society, culture, and the human experience. By following in your footsteps, they carry forward not just techniques, but values and wisdom honed over decades. Even as centuries pass, the influence of a skilled candle maker persists in subtle ways. The principles you upheld, quality, diligence, responsibility, and respect for the sacred and practical aspects of your work become embedded in guild regulations, apprentice training, and community expectations. Modern makers may not know your name, yet your innovations and standards continue to shape what is considered excellent craftsmanship. Your light, both tangible and symbolic, endures. The final reflection is humbling. Life is fleeting. Hands tire, eyes fade, and bodies succumb to time. Yet the flames you nurtured continue to burn. They illuminate homes, guide rituals, and sustain communities. They serve as a metaphor for the broader human endeavor, that through skill, care, and attention we can leave traces of ourselves that endure long after we are gone. Your work teaches that even the simplest object, a candle, can embody patience, thoughtfulness, and the power to transform daily life. As you look back on decades of labor, from the earliest apprenticeships to the mastery and guidance of others, you understand the full measure of your influence. Every taper, pillar, and stub crafted in your workshop represents not just skill, but a commitment to light in a world often shrouded in darkness. You realize that the true reward of your life-as work is not coins earned or recognition gained, but the lasting presence of your craft in the hands, homes, and hearts of those who follow. In this final chapter, your legacy is complete. From the first flickering flames you coaxed to life to the sophisticated pillars that now burn in distant chapels and homes, your craft has shaped both the tangible and intangible world. Your apprentices carry your wisdom forward, the townspeople carry your candles, and the world carries the influence of your skill and vision. The light you nurtured continues to burn, eternal and unbroken, a testament to a life devoted to craft, care, and the profound human need for illumination. Through your candles, you achieve a form of immortality. They are more than wax and wick. They are symbols of guidance, resilience, and enduring influence. Every flame tells the story of a life spent in devotion to craft, community, and continuity. Though your own life may end, the light you have given the world persists, forever shaping the rhythm of medieval nights and leaving a legacy that transcends time. Your life as a medieval candle maker, once defined by the daily labor of wax and wicks, concludes not with silence, but with a quiet, lasting glow. The streets, homes, chapels, and hearts illuminated by your hands are proof that mastery, care, and vision can transcend mortality. In the eternal light of your craft, you live on forever, a guardian of the night, a facilitator of hope, and a master whose influence endures long after the final candle has burned.